And do you use ChatGPT when raising your baby?
I do. I mean, I feel kind of bad about it.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
So, just recently, it's been reported that the Walt Disney Company signed a $1 billion deal with OpenAI. This deal is meant to allow users of OpenAI's Sora program to officially generate over 200 different characters from the Disney library. Needless to say, this is something that a lot of people are currently upset over, especially with AI slop taking over a lot of different avenues of the entertainment industry. Disney has been a much maligned company for a while now, and rightfully so, but this seems to be an entirely new kind of low for them. It's also incredibly hypocritical since, funny enough, the exact day this deal was announced, Disney tried to sue Google and Gemini for supposedly using their characters without their authorization. And earlier this year, they were part of a trifecta that included them, Universal Pictures, and Warner Brothers that ended up suing Midjourney for supposedly using their characters unauthorized. So why exactly is it now that they're allowing a giant AI firm to use 200 of their characters for AI-generated videos? It's also ironic that Disney, the biggest family-friendly company in the world, well, with an asterisk anyway, is choosing to align themselves with a company run by the guy who openly admits that he uses ChatGPT to decide how he raises his kid.
And I know that you and your husband just had a baby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. And do you use ChatGPT when raising your baby?
I do. I mean, I feel kind of bad about it. I cannot imagine having gone through the, figuring out how to raise a newborn without ChatGPT. Clearly, people did it for a long time.
Oh my God, bro. Hell no.
Man, imagine being a parent in 2025 and using ChatGPT to raise your kid. We are absolutely cooked here. But I think one of the more interesting aspects of this deal is actually just how crappy of a deal it is on OpenAI's end. For those unaware, OpenAI is currently spending so freely at the moment that $1 billion, which is exactly the deal they made with Disney, will only cover 3 to 4 weeks of their estimated losses. Based on those numbers, they would actually need 1,001 other $1 billion Disney deals just to keep going. So you might be asking yourself, why exactly did Scott Altman and OpenAI even accept this deal when it's not even really that good for them at all? Well, really, the answer lies in exactly what was just stated here. OpenAI pretty much needs any investment it can get at this point just to keep going. In fact, the only reason they've really been able to keep going as long as they have now is because they have some of the biggest investors around. Microsoft, Nvidia, and now Disney have all invested in OpenAI, and it hasn't really done OpenAI as much good as it has done those companies. Ultimately, if OpenAI wasn't constantly getting investment from giant mega corporations like this, it actually would have collapsed a long time ago. But unfortunately for everybody else, the big suits at top keep investing in this company, and so we're gonna keep seeing AI slop as long as there's investment in it. Part of the reason Disney has also chosen to invest in OpenAI is because they also want legal grounds to sue anyone else that tries to produce any of their characters using AI. Currently, OpenAI actually has a 1-year license to use these 200 Disney characters, so they have exclusive rights to use them as opposed to any other AI firm. According to Disney themselves, part of the reason why they're handing over 200 of their characters to OpenAI is for copyright reasons, and so no other AI firm can actually use them, but let's face it, we know that's not true. If Disney really wants to, they can go ahead at any time and sue any company that's making AI-generated versions of their characters, and they have many times before, like I said earlier. The only reasons they're actually doing this is because A, they think it'll benefit them in the long run by being an early player in the burgeoning AI game, and B, it's pretty clear they're getting the much better end of this deal between them and OpenAI, given the fact that OpenAI could collapse at any moment. I've seen a lot of people very surprised at Disney doing this, which honestly, I'm kind of surprised that people are surprised about this. I don't think everyone is really aware of all the signs there were that were pointing at Disney eventually making a deal like this. A lot of this you can actually trace all the way back to even just 2022 when AI was starting to really pick up in the mainstream overall. In order to understand the full story here, however, and also understand where Disney initially got so hooked on AI, I think it's important to look at the person that arguably is responsible for some of the most encouragement of usage of AI in Hollywood overall, that being renowned director James Cameron. I honestly don't think James Cameron has gotten enough flack whatsoever for just how many times he's blatantly encouraged the use of AI in the film industry. James Cameron absolutely is a great director and has made some of the greatest and definitely most profitable films of all time, but he's also, unfortunately, a major advocate for AI, and in fact is the head of the Stability AI board of directors. He's also been working with Disney for quite a while now, first having designed Avatar: The World of Pandora for Walt Disney World back in 2017. And later on, he ended up making Disney's most profitable film of 2022 by far with Avatar: The Way of Water, the sequel he'd been working on forever. However, it was around this time that we started to see some worrying signs from James Cameron in terms of his opinion on AI. Not long after the release of Avatar: The Way of Water, he ended up getting interviewed and asked about his opinion on AI usage in Hollywood, and this is what he had to say.
The thing that I've been thinking about lately, because a lot of the hesitation in Hollywood and entertainment in general are issues of the source material for the training data and who deserves what and copyright protection and all that sort of thing. And I think people are looking at it all wrong. Personally, I think we are all. I'm an artist. Anybody that's an artist, anybody that's a human being, is a model. You're a model already.
Yeah.
You got a 3.5 pound meat computer. You're not carrying all the training data with you. You're creating a model as you go through life to process quickly through that model every new situation that comes on.
Naturally, this didn't go over very well for him since Cameron was comparing an actual AI model to a real human artist, two things that are, by definition, very different. An AI model does not simply take inspiration from other pieces of art like a human artist usually does, unlike what James Cameron is saying here. Rather, it steals directly from other artists and creates an amalgamation of other pieces of art that aren't its own in order to create whatever prompt it is given. That is very different from simply a human artist taking inspiration from other artists. Cameron got a lot of flack for this comparison, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, this didn't stop him from just a year later becoming the bane of pretty much every physical movie collector on the planet. And funny enough, this is also the exact moment where we started to see Disney themselves leaning more into embracing AI in general. For those who don't know, in 2024, James Cameron released 3 of his movies in 4K for the first time in collaboration with Disney. These films were Aliens, True Lies, and The Abyss, all films initially produced by Fox and now officially owned by Disney. As a result, they were overseen directly by Cameron and distributed by Disney's physical media label Buena Vista Home Entertainment. However, while it was cool these films were finally being put out on 4K, they were incredibly controversial when they came out and caused quite an uproar in the physical movie community because of the fact they were all upscaled using AI. That's right, instead of just going about a normal 4K transfer, James Cameron intentionally used AI to upscale these movies. And the results, at least for Aliens and True Lies, were pretty drastic to say the least. For those who don't know how 4K remasters are generally done in Hollywood, usually they take the original camera negative of a film, scan it, clean it, make sure to repair any sort of damage done to the original negative, and also make sure that the colors match the original 35mm print. This is also often done with as little meddling as possible to the film itself to keep the original experience as pure as can be. This is often really important, especially when remastering films that came out before every film was shot digitally. James Cameron's 4K remasters of Aliens and True Lies are notable for being the first ever Disney remasters to pretty much completely disregard this sentiment and more or less have AI muck everything up about these films. For those unaware, James Cameron actually enlisted Peter Jackson's help in remastering these films using an AI technology that he developed called Park Road Technologies. This technology was designed specifically by Peter Jackson in order to upscale older footage, probably most notably The Beatles Get Back, which was a documentary series that aired on Disney+. While this series was mostly received well by critics at the time, the technology it utilized was definitely criticized. Most notably, a lot of people pointed out that the AI used to upscale the original archival footage of the Beatles used in this documentary actually gave them a really smooth, very fake looking look to them. And the fact that he used so much digital noise reduction actually resulted in a lot of detail missing from the original footage. Despite all this, James Cameron thought it would be a brilliant idea to use this technology in his upcoming remasters of Aliens and True Lies, and oh boy, the results speak for themselves. Now we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger and everybody else in True Lies looking like they should be in a wax museum because the AI can't figure out what skin is at all for some reason. Whenever AI tries to upscale skin from older footage, it always makes it look way too glossy and smooth, like I'm looking at Mr. Clean's forehead or something. And the remasters of True Lies and Aliens have that all over them. True Lies is probably the most blatant example of the AI completely messing up while upscaling this film, giving everything a very uncanny valley look and also removing a lot of detail as well. In this shot here, the AI adds a bunch of pores and creases to Arnold's face for no discernible reason whatsoever, making him look like he's from the uncanny valley. And in this shot here, of course, the AI manages to mess up Arnold's hand. Wow, human hands really seem to be the nemesis of AI forever. This shot here makes Tom Arnold look like he's turning into an amalgamation of Emperor Palpatine and Donald Trump, which no, is not a compliment. Jamie Lee Curtis has been turned into a ghoulish vampire here, with her skin being way too smooth and there being almost no detail whatsoever shown on it. And because of the oversaturation of all the AI and DNR in the 4K transfer of this film, every single action scene looks like it was green screened in, which is honestly kind of a shame because this film was notable for having some great practical effects in it. Every single over-the-top action scene in this film was actually all done practically, but because of how the AI operates here, it looks incredibly phony, which really sucks and underlines the hard work that went into making these scenes. Despite James Cameron advertising the usage of AI during the 4K remaster of this as something that would make the ultimate experience for this film and something that would add a lot to it, if anything, it's just taken away from it. The same exact thing happened when he remastered Aliens with Disney as well. While it's not as bad as the True Lies remaster, the AI still does mess up a lot of stuff here. Much like before, pretty much every close-up shot of a face is way too hyper-saturated and adds too many pores and stress lines to every single face, making everyone look way older than they actually are. Sigourney Weaver looks just about 20 years older in every shot of this film as a result, just because of how much the AI messes up her face. The AI is really bad at reading long-distance models as well. In this shot here with Vasquez, it tries to read her face at first as an amorphous blob because it doesn't recognize her face is a face. Then for some reason it adds a mouth to this side of her cheek because it doesn't realize where her mouth is supposed to go. Then it finally does figure out her mouth is supposed to go on the front of her face and adds this weird little blowhole like she's a dolphin on the front of it. Gee, I guess we should start calling her Flipper now, huh, James? And then it ends everything off, giving her mime makeup for no reason whatsoever. Pretty much every face shown at a long distance or with a lot of motion in this movie is automatically morphed for no reason whatsoever by the AI. When there's a lot of commotion in a particular scene, it can't seem to read the face at all as just a face and just wants to do a bunch of other things with it. Even just completely metal structures in this film have been smoothed over entirely by the AI for no discernible reason whatsoever, making them look like XRBZ filters for old games. Come on, James, this technology has been around since 1982. Are you telling me it took you this long to actually come up with something like this? The guys at LucasArts figured out how to do this when porting Monkey Island to Macintosh. And just like before, pretty much every practical effect in this movie looks like CGI or a green screen because of how much the AI is completely overdoing it. Like the alien queen looks like a CGI monster in this version, which should not be the case at all. I think one of the most frustrating things about this is around the time both of these movies were finally released on 4K, while True Lies did get a lot of flack from major news outlets, a lot of major physical media news outlets ended up openly stating they wanted to sidestep any discussions on the AI used during the Aliens transfer, and give it positive reviews simply on the merit of it being a 4K version of Alien, whether it was a good version or not. And this, to me personally, was undoubtedly a huge mistake. When it comes to the usage of AI, especially with how rapidly it's evolving and also how uncomfortably often it's getting used in the entertainment industry, it's very important to actually call it out when it's blatantly doing something wrong, like replacing artists, or in this case, taking away detail from an older version of a movie. Claiming that these are the best ways to watch these movies and also claiming that these versions add in a lot of detail that wasn't there before is basically false advertising. And it's really important to call that out when it happens, especially in regards to AI, but unfortunately, a lot of news outlets didn't do that around this time. And while he was derided a lot for True Lies, James Cameron more or less got away scot-free with his pretty atrocious restoration of Aliens, which is really unfortunate for the industry. He and Disney were not properly called out when this film was remastered at all for the atrocious use of AI, which unfortunately became a further issue as time went on. So after seeing they could use AI on their products and not get called out for it too much, Disney decided to not so covertly look into using AI further in entertainment avenues of theirs. The same year they put out the Aliens and True Lies remasters, they also ended up using AI in other things put on Disney+. Two notable examples of this were the film Prom Pact and also the Marvel TV series Secret Invasion. In the film Prom Pact, right away in the opening scene, you can actually very visibly tell that the extras in the bleachers are all entirely AI generated. Or at the very least, the ones shown in this row here for a split second. Holy crap, they give the Polar Express a run for its money in terms of the uncanny valley. These are so bad looking, what were you thinking, Disney? You could have just put actual extras in here. But of course, this was them trying to subtly test the waters for AI generated people in their films going forward. Why pay wages for extras in films when you can just AI generate them? With this film being a relatively minor release dumped on Disney Plus, this was a pretty easy way for them to try this without anyone really noticing. However, things got even worse when Secret Invasion was released, because then people actually caught on and Disney got called out. For those unaware, in Secret Invasion, the entirety of the credit sequence is all AI generated. Unlike the situation with Prom Pact, which of course was a movie that barely anyone watched, Secret Invasion caught on enough despite having terrible reviews for people to actually notice that this entire sequence was all AI. And people were really not happy about it whatsoever. In fact, funny enough, both of these instances actually ended up playing into the fact that the writer's strike happened later that year in 2023. 2023 was a pretty bad year in general for Disney, despite it being their 100th anniversary, with a lot of major flops like Indiana Jones The Dial of Destiny, Wish, Haunted Mansion, and The Marvel. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is another one. The only movies they actually had this year that could be considered viable successes would be Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and also Elemental. And the writer's strike ultimately made it even worse for Disney, since they had to delay the release dates for a lot of their planned movies. Things like Fantastic Four: The First Steps, Avatar: Fire and Ash, Deadpool and Wolverine, Tron Ares, and Zootopia 2 all got shifted around pretty drastically thanks to the strikes. Man, I really wish the live-action Lilo and Stitch had just been cancelled in the midst of this. Life would be a lot better without that, for sure. But eventually, the studios did strike a deal with the writers, and it seemed like finally the writers' strike was over. It seemed like at long last, confirmation that AI would never infiltrate the Disney studios was finally here. Until just a year later, when Disney decided to put AI slop all over the premiere for Tron Ares.
Our expectations for you were low, but holy
Why Disney decided to do this is honestly beyond me. Tron is generally a pretty hard IP to sell to a mainstream audience overall, so putting AI slop and associating with Elon Musk all over the premiere of the film was honestly not a good idea. Also, making Jared Leto the star of your film was never a good idea either. The man has killed Sony's Spider-Man universe and also Tron, so now he's off to kill the Masters of the Universe franchise as well next year. Yippee! This was also just genuinely a baffling decision from Disney themselves, since earlier that year they had actually scrapped AI usage from the live-action Moana remake and also Tron Ares. Initially, for the live-action Moana remake, which by the way still doesn't need to happen, the movie won't even be 10 years old by the time the remake comes out, they were gonna have an AI deepfake of Dwayne Johnson, because clearly that's something everybody wants to see. And funny enough, this idea was actually scrapped not even because of the ethics surrounding AI, but because Disney was worried they couldn't claim ownership over every part of the film if AI generated parts were included in it. Wow, yep, that sounds very Disney for sure. As for Tron Ares, there was initially gonna be a completely AI generated character included in it, but eventually this got scrapped. It's no secret that Tron Ares saw a lot of revision during its scripting and also during its filming, and a lot of scenes actually got cut from the film, so more than likely this is just the cause of that rather than Disney actually caring about AI. Hence why they had no problems at all putting AI slop all over the premiere of this film. And then, just 1 month after Tron Ares initially came out, the big blow came in the form of Bob Iger announcing that Disney was going to be looking into putting AI-generated content on Disney+. This inevitably caused a lot of backlash online, and rightfully so. One of the big voices speaking about this was none other than Dana Terrace, who previously created the Owl House show for Disney Channel and also currently creates the Knights of Guinevere for Glitch Productions, which I've talked about here before on the channel. Dana is honestly one of the most base people currently out there in the animation industry, and pretty boldly spoke against Bob Iger here. She urged people to unsubscribe from Disney Plus and simply pirate her show instead, since obviously Bob Iger and crew should not really be endorsed for putting AI slop on Disney Plus. And then just 1 month later, the official deal came out about Disney and OpenAI, with Disney letting them use 200 of their characters. So that brings us to now, where people are wondering what exactly this deal is gonna do for Disney and how exactly this will operate on Disney Plus overall. overall. From what has been shown, obviously there's going to be a limit to just 200 characters that users are supposed to be able to use on Disney Plus and make AI generated videos of. But like I said before, even though OpenAI 100% got the short end of the stick on this deal, I kinda wonder whether Disney is thinking people will actually want to pay for this on Disney Plus in general, or even use this feature. Disney is a company that is notoriously very protective of how their characters are viewed and what they do in various media. Perhaps one of the best examples of this is the animated Mickey Mouse short Runaway Brain. For those unaware as to what Runaway Brain is, this was actually a Mickey Mouse short that was developed in the early 90s when Disney was looking to rejuvenate the character in a new way and bring it to a new audience. They had actually designated a specific team led by Kathleen Gavin, who was just coming off of The Nightmare Before Christmas with doing this exact thing. Tons of different ideas were thrown around, such as a sequel to Fantasia, new attractions for the theme parks, and also ideas for a new Mickey Mouse short. Specifically, they wanted to do something new and extreme and wacky and very 90s with Mickey Mouse. And that eventually led to the release of the animated short Runaway Brain, which was an animated short where Mickey got his brain swapped with a monster and became an almost unrecognizable demonic force. This was a much different and much darker direction for Mickey Mouse than the company had ever taken for the character before. There's an Exorcist reference in this short. There's an Evil Dead reference in this short. The monster version of Mickey gets horny for Minnie in a bikini. This was completely different from anything else Disney had really done with the character before, and it was a pretty striking difference. But it's because of how different this short portrayed their mascot character that Disney wasn't really sure what to do with this short when it actually came out. It ended up premiering alongside A Kid in King Arthur's Court when it actually came out, which was probably the worst possible movie for it to debut alongside, although thankfully international audiences got to see it alongside a Goofy movie and Hunchback, which are much better movies. The short eventually got released on the Walt Disney Treasures collection in the early 2000s, and then after that it was more or less just buried by Disney themselves since they didn't really like how it portrayed Mickey, who of course, like I said before, is their mascot. Disney has been very notorious for a long time of being careful how their characters, especially their mascot characters, are portrayed and seen by the public. Runaway Brain did not fit that image that they wanted the general public to see Mickey in, so as a result, they buried it. So it really does make you wonder, how exactly are they going to keep the AI generated tools on Disney Plus from making versions of their characters that they don't think are publicly acceptable? Because keep in mind, supposedly the AI generated videos are going to be owned by Disney once you make them on this platform, and also they're going to be shared around and shown on Disney Plus as well. More than likely, these videos are going to be heavily restricted as to what prompts you can actually input and what you can actually make the characters do. Especially assuming that they are including mascot characters in these 200 characters like Mickey Mouse himself, this would be something they'd really want to do. But then that really makes you think, why in the world would the audience who actually likes AI generated stuff be interested in any of this? Usually those kinds of people are only interested in AI generated content for allowing them to put harmless cartoon characters in pretty messed up situations, like putting Pikachu in the set of Saving Private Ryan. This is generally the audience that's kind of interested in this stuff and what you can do with different cartoon characters, so why in the world would they want to mess around with something like this on Disney Plus if they can't actually do the stuff they normally want to do? In addition to this, Disney has also unveiled that they seem to want a lot more out of this OpenAI deal than a lot of people initially thought, since just recently they revealed that they're going to be making a ChatGPT clone for their employees called Disney GPT. Wow, absolutely wonderful. Now all the Disney employees can use that when raising their kids instead of actually learning how to raise a kid, just like the CEO of OpenAI is. And they've also revealed an Iron Man themed AI tool called Jarvis, just like the Jarvis from the Iron Man films and comics. Now, you might be thinking, oh, if Disney is going to be using Jarvis as an AI tool, perhaps Paul Bettany, the voice of Jarvis, can actually sue them for this. And then, hopefully, Disney will actually stop doing AI slop, right? Right? Unfortunately, Disney has also taken measures to prevent against this as well, since they've revealed that none of the AI-generated content they're going to be putting on Disney Plus nor Jarvis will include any of the voices or actual likenesses of any of the actors behind these characters. On the one hand, obviously this is a good thing because this means these actors aren't getting ripped off by having their voices included in AI slop. But on the other hand, it means Disney has taken very careful measures to make sure that none of these actors can actually sue them for having these characters featured in AI videos on Disney+. So whether people like it or not, Disney has basically taken every measure possible to make sure these AI videos stay up on Disney+. And in addition to this, it's very clear they're also looking at ways to integrate AI into their workflow, like the Jarvis thing I just mentioned here. This is rather concerning that AI is not only being endorsed on Disney Plus and AI generated videos are being put on there, but it's also being integrated directly into the company's workflow. It's unclear if they're actually implementing this system in order to replace human workers, hopefully not. But even if that's not actually the plan, this is something that's pretty harmful to the natural creative process. This is something that was just announced today as of me making this video, so I guess we'll just have to see how Disney actually plans on implementing this Jarvis system in the future. But regardless of anything, it's honestly really disappointing to see Disney team up with OpenAI to begin with. Disney has made a lot, and I mean a lot, of pretty bad decisions over the last decade or so. They blatantly messed up the Star Wars sequel trilogy by not having a plan for that trilogy whatsoever. After Avengers Endgame came out, they ended up oversaturating the Marvel brand by putting out a bunch of half-baked shows, only a few of which were actually quality. And they've also constantly pressured Pixar to keep putting out sequels to their popular movies instead of creating original director-driven projects, which Pixar was normally known for when they were starting out. But as bad as all of those decisions have been, it is nowhere near as bad as how much they've been endorsing AI in recent memory. This is something that, believe it or not, Walt Disney himself probably would be spinning in his grave over. The reason why Walt Disney was able to create a successful animation and family branded company is because he understood how to make timeless properties that could appeal to a very wide audience. He wasn't into doing sequels, and he wasn't into doing things that he thought would cheapen the brand and ruin the magic that the Disney company had. And since his death in the 1960s, this is something that every CEO that has run the Disney company after him has failed to realize. They all have done things that have blatantly cheapened the Disney brand at one point or another, and Iger just happens to be the worst offender of this. Buying out things like Star Wars and Marvel instead of making original properties that people will love for many years to come. Forcing Pixar to continue to make sequels instead of making original director-driven movies like they used to do. And now, the cherry on top, blatantly endorsing generative AI. Michael Eisner was by no means a great CEO either, but even he understood in order to run a company with longevity, you had to make products that actually had longevity to them. There's a quote from him in the book Disney War, which by the way I highly recommend reading if you're interested in seeing how Disney sort of got to this point to begin with, where he says, "We have no obligation to make art, we have no obligation to make history, we have no obligation to make a statement, but to make money. But to make money, it is often important to make history, to make art, or make some significant statement." While Eisner unfortunately missed a lot of the points that Walt understood and definitely cheapened the Disney brand by creating a bunch of direct-to-video sequels and things like that, he still did understand the importance of encouraging great art to be made at the company by actually artistically gifted people so that the company would maintain longevity. Even as bad as Eisner is, I can still give him that point over Bob Iger, who has not understood that aspect whatsoever. Michael Eisner's reign at Disney was also highlighted by the Disney Renaissance in the 1990s, which produced some of their greatest films of all time. And many of the films from that era are still loved by audiences all around the world because the artists who created them were actually encouraged to create truly timeless pieces of art. This is a sentiment that Iger directly goes against when endorsing AI. To cap things off here, I want to share a clip from the Pixar Story, which was a documentary from 2007 about the founding of Pixar. It's a pretty good, albeit a bit outdated now, documentary that covers pretty much the entire history of the company all the way up to the release of Ratatouille. I was recently rewatching this documentary since it's included on my Criterion edition of WALL-E, and one particular clip here stuck out to me.
Early days, artists were frightened of the computer because they were under the impression that somehow it's going to take their jobs away. And we spent a lot of time telling people, no, it's just a tool. It doesn't do the creativity. That's a misconception, but there was this fear.
I think that is so interesting to look back on now, after seeing how Pixar eventually was able to show people that art could still be created with the computer using it as a tool. But now we've almost gone completely in the other direction, and now computers are just doing the art entirely for people. Things like this eliminate the creative process entirely and really go against companies like Pixar's entire mantra. And they also go against what used to be Disney's entire mantra as well. It is incredibly disappointing to see them teaming up with OpenAI, and I can only hope that eventually, since Bob Iger is supposedly leaving the company pretty soon, that this will be taken care of after that. I guess we'll ultimately just have to see how Disney ends up integrating AI as time goes on, since this is still pretty early on in their deal with OpenAI. But one thing's for certain, if they were already given a bad look for a lot of things before, this just gave them an even worse look by a lot of people. For now, the best thing you can do is just have your voice heard. If you have a Disney Plus subscription and you don't want to see AI slop on it, let Disney know and cancel that subscription. It really comes down to the users giving the mouse the money to let them know that they don't want to see AI slop on their streaming platform. Now, I'm not going to necessarily advocate for boycotting Disney movies, obviously, because I think that's always kind of a double-edged sword. There absolutely are a lot of great creative people that still work at Disney, and they do work on a lot of these movies, and that's how they get paid usually. So that's why I never really advocate for boycotting specific Disney products, especially if it's something you really like and want to see succeed, especially if it's animated. Lord knows the animation industry needs it as much as it can get these days. But regardless of anything and what you decide to do with your money, I guess we'll just see for now what Disney actually decides to do with AI, and hopefully it'll end eventually. But what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I a gay furry? And what are your thoughts on Disney teaming up with OpenAI? Let me know in the comments below. Regardless, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a like and also consider subscribing as well. I do a lot of videos like this overall, often talking about film and animation, so if you like this video, you'll probably like the other videos I have planned as well. If you'd like to keep up with what I do outside of YouTube, you can check out all my socials down below. And if you want to check out all my written film reviews, you can check out my letterbox linked in the description. If you'd like to hang out with a bunch of like-minded film and animation fans as well, you can consider joining my Discord, which is also linked down below. Special thanks to all my patrons and YouTube members who keep me doing what I do here monetarily. I appreciate y'all a ton for pitching in with the extra monetary effort. I appreciate you for coming to the very end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. But for now, I've been Otterly Noah, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye!